What's up, everybody? This is KARAK with ACG, and welcome to another Eyes on Indies. This is where I grab a couple indie games and I throw them up here to show you what excites me, what looks enticing. I would love for you to subscribe, give it a thumbs up. Let's help fight the algorithm and jump directly into this. The first one with Broken Roads. 2023 is the release date by Drop Bear Bytes. If I said post-apocalyptic and Disco Elysium, you would think what? This. You would think about it because there are about 200 reasons why they feel like they are in some way distant cousins. A narrative-driven role-playing game, Broken Roads is going to combine exploration, tactical turn-based combat, and philosophical decision-making in a brand new Australian post-apocalyptic scenario. Australia's already post-apocalyptic. They don't have half of the good shit in anyway. It's essentially a team-based Mad Max. It's got Disco Elysium-styled stories and philosophical concepts, a classless structure, and that's going to give you the freedom to make any of the characters that you want, any way that you want, but also go out there and go baselessly blasting in a post-apocalyptic world with the game's moral compass. This is sort of a novel structure for the game. It's the character's philosophical inclinations that influence and can be influenced by the choices and dialogue in the questing, but you actually have a physical representation of where those choices are taking you, and I'll show some pictures on the screen of this. Broken Road tries to combine that exploration, the turn-based combat, and these narrative philosophical choices into all of the gameplay. Now, when it comes to its comparison to Disco Elysium, I'm pretty sure this isn't going to be five-person covering of Carpunk Hamlet, but I'm all for what I'm seeing here. The dialogue options and the questing decisions influence and can be influenced by everything that's going on around you and your 5 team members, with you exploring this post-apocalyptic world and trying to keep your car straight up top to the rim with the go-go juice. Broken Road's unique system is based on 4 areas of moral philosophy, and these are all going to affect the narrative. And these are utilitarianism, nihilism, Machiavellianism, and humanism. In a 360 chart that shows you all the possible options players are able to choose from within the range. So as you make a choice that's more towards the dark side, this thing that almost looks like a bingo board or some kind of Wheel of Fortune spins a little bit and shows you those new options as things are becoming available. Are you skewing one way or the other? Now, I don't think this is going to be as deeply philosophical as Disco Elysium. That game was a role-playing game that had gone on for years. But what I'm seeing here really does end up finally fitting the post-apocalyptic structure that I personally want for decision-making. I do want more feedback on these. Something that we can say that Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas, and Fallout 4 attempted to do, and some did better than others, but it never really quite did it as much as I would want. Wasteland 3 did a better job, in fact, in some of these ways. Now, your decisions and the dialogue options are going to shift and allow for different choices on the quests that you go on, and you're going to be able to really see this at all times. Even if this turns out to be a little more than a way for you to see the true shifting of the mechanics underneath the hood, I think this feels like one of the cleanest ways to look at it. The game also looks sweet already, talking about graphics. I cannot wait to see this, and I hope that date, 2023, does not slip past us. I really do think this game looks awesome. I'm a sucker for post-apocalyptic. Next up is Swordship. This is by Digital Kingdom, out December 5th, so later tomorrow at some point. Otherwise, it's going to be out and you'll be able to jump on this and see it. It's one of the closest games, but I want to cover it. I think that it deserves it. Swordship is a fast-paced, futuristic take on classic arcade-style shooters and that entire genre. You end up ducking and weaving and diving through this onslaught of enemies intent on tearing your swordship apart. You can turn the tide of combat and enemy against themselves in a very specific way in this game. First, it all sounds like a default Steam read for that page, but Swordship is actually doing some very different things. First, the actual main story part is that you as a rogue are one of the people on the planet that has rebelled against the last 3 remaining massive cities. These are humans just huddled in there waiting to get mulched by the next big world-ending event. So you go out, you take on command of these lightning-fast ships, you deliver cargo, take odd jobs, and play out in missions on this based overworld. You begin stealing supplies set up for the city and taking them to the rest of the banished, people who do stuff that basically get them kicked out of the cities. Like high-end milkmen, Jason Statham, just transporting everything in an all-you-can-drive buffet. But the entire game is based around you not having a gun. You're dodging and diving, slipping and sliding around enemies' attacks, causing them to kill themselves. So it's basically what a John Wick fight would look like in spaceships if John Wick didn't hit everybody. It's time to give gunships a real reason to be called that. And in this reason, it's because this gunship doesn't have any. It's the idea of slipping and sliding, the idea of moving around and trying to keep the enemy firing so that the enemy can fire on other enemies that are firing so that both can end up on fire. I think that's awesome. The graphics on this thing look incredible. There is a very unique take on the look itself. It's also got a full weather system of some kind, which allows for randomly generated systems both in weather and in the actual outcome of the levels themselves, which is going to be able to add hazards to the level, but also the player will be able to take advantage of some of those. I can only assume knocking one ship into another water spout or something like that. I love these kind of games that switch it up. As they say in their statement, guns are cool, but they're bulky and the Swordship doesn't have any. And that's the part of what makes it light and maneuverable. So you going out there collecting all these different power-ups to add shields or reflectors or all that kind of stuff to your ship, but never really having to worry so much about the output of your own weapons means that there can be a completely different style of gameplay for Swordship. This thing looks incredible. If it's out now, I suggest you go check. Hopefully there's some reviews. And if it's not, I would definitely look at this when it becomes available. Then next up, while I don't have a ton of information on this, it absolutely needs to be mentioned. Stalcraft by Exbo, December 9th. Do you like Stalker? Do you like Minecraft? Hold on to your butts. Stalcraft is a game in the MMOFPS genre initially. It's got survival horror elements, though, and it features a unique world, RPG and shooter mechanics, and atmospheric gameplay, but built in the style of a Minecraft world. Most of the time, the player's going to be spending their time in the Chernobyl exclusion zone. There's your stalker bit. Locations are filled with all kinds of PvP and PvE activities overlapping. Searching for artifacts, mutant hunting, exploration of uncharted locations, doing quests, finding laboratories, participation in faction wars, full faction wars. The mix of PvE and PvP means that the player can then dive into the main story with full voices and cutscenes, and then instantly take off and do PvP activities at the same time. The idea of mixing in Minecraft and Stalker is mind-blowing to me. And while the game does look like Minecraft, and it started that way years ago as a mod, it's actually been ported by the developers over to their own engine that they say handles the switching of activities, the mixing and matching and merging of all of the different activities more seamlessly than they could have done with a Minecraft mod. As a player, you can leap into warring factions, kill outsiders anywhere except for small safe zones, and quest across the world in dungeons with you or others. Now, this game's been in development a long time, but it looks awesome, and it actually looks like it is very close to be ready to be released. Stalcraft looks exactly like Stalker and Minecraft mixed together, and there's something about that I didn't know I wanted, but now I do. Speaking of something I didn't know I wanted, but now I do, this game, Choo Charles. 2-star games, December 9th. You and a couple people navigate an open world in a beat-up old train being chased by a friggin' nightmare, clown, spider train. Yeah. Charles just keeps on chasing you, and it's your job to upgrade the beat-up, nasty-ass, terrible train that you've got, consistently trying to escape, going out, finding items, upgrading it, and moving forward. But since Charles has spider legs, he isn't just contained to the railroad tracks like you. You have to go on missions, collect items to upgrade the train, as well as side missions for straight-up looting. Always watching for the spider train. That is just an amazing sentence. Trading and probably terrifying other settlers in the area that apparently the devil train doesn't give a crap about while you can perform missions for them is awesome. Look at this game. It looks incredible, and it's made by a YouTuber. Now, I'm not exactly sure how this is going to play out as a game-based level, on a spider-legged train choo-choo just chugging its way into hell through a demonic forest land and trying to lay eggs in your dead body. That's already at the top of my list. If my list already had a top to it, this would be on top of the top part of the list. The fact that it already looks fun as hell is a bonus. But Choo Charles looks like something that comes from the indie scene and lights it on fire and then dances with its little spider legs on the ashes, and I think it probably will. Looks friggin' awesome. Not every game needs to be absolute horror, spider laying eggs in your brains kind of game. Aquitoco, this is January 19th in 2023 by Digital River. Every Civilization building game sort of tries to do something different, and while we've seen occasional underwater titles, Aquitoco looks to buck the trend a bit with the way it handles not only Civ-based building style titles, but also that overall threat on you and the various different ways in which the world and the atmosphere can be the threat. It's not just about building a civilization in the game on these prairies, it's about making sure the actual place survives and isn't crushed in a shiny looking piece of agate by being 4 fathoms down. The end of the world or the end of the outer world came and went, and mankind never had an Elon rocket to ride off onto. And Aquitoco is you leaping into your submarines and crimson tiding the future into your bitch. How do they build on the seafloor? That is with the assistance of robots, hard work, and very good planning. In Aquitoco, players construct the city underwater in an attempt to stay alive. You plan carefully, you have to lay the foundation for your underwater metropolis on the seabed, you got to always watch out for dangers, and you got to prepare yourself for all these unique sets of difficulties that will come up from just living on the seafloor. And yeah, it's a fresh start when you think about it, but surviving on the seafloor is not going to be easy, but you can still set up things like farm, harvesting tuna and little tiny nets and corrals. Save yourself from a dying planet by constructing a metropolis beneath the waves. Sounds like a cool idea, but it sounds like just going from one danger to the next. You maintain your ship, you have to build your base through and underneath the waves, construct essential infrastructure, manufacturing facilities on the seafloor, and protect the people themselves from the peril of living in the ocean floor. So not only are you going to be balancing all of the deadly details that can come up when you're putting buildings on the ocean floor, then imagine putting some squishy little humans out there in some water suits. And I have a feeling we're going to see a lot of death. You got to protect your people from all kinds of stuff. Collect data on water temperature, supervise construction of your underwater outpost, all the while making sure to look at exactly where you're building. So they've replaced in a lot of ways the fields and the mountains here with trenches or different silt farms and places that you can build. It's really looking to be something special. And of course, they are going to have disasters. Every single Civilization game's got to have them. Here you also have what every Civilization game is known for, and that's your tech tree. But this tech tree is extensively built for living under the water, and they've done research to find out what those people would actually need. Everything from oxygen purifiers to sushi bars. I'm not quite sure they need that, but they need defensive grids and how to recycle when you're underwater. How far can you move it? How much energy does that take to take the recycling and move it somewhere else? You also explore here, though, which is very cool. You can send out drones and subs, set up assembly lines. You can actually lead expeditions into new locations under the water. And the last part about Aquitoco that absolutely excites me is they've made sure that you understand that rewards and resources in this game will be very rare. In fact, they call this a survival civilization building game. That idea to me puts this well and above any of the others that I've been looking at lately. That kind of stuff and that feeling of tense pressure that sort of matches the pressure above your head from the water is exactly why I want to experience this. I think Aquitoco looks awesome. Next up, Scars Above by Mad Games, 2023. Returnal, Dark Souls, Dead Space. If those things interest you, then Scars Above might as well. There's only been a couple trailers of this, but I had to absolutely show it. Scars Above is this supposedly challenging immersive third-person shooter inspired by modern type action-adventure games, which is where it ends up getting a lot of those Returnal comparison. It takes all of the genre staples, such as rewarding you for overcoming difficulty, but it also combines it with a more intricate and understanding story than we might have had with Returnal, which parsed out its story in some really confusing ways, where it feels like the gameplay and how well you do will instantly be rewarded with some kind of story. There's an object, alien and unknown, out there made out of matter that seems to not obey the law of physics. It's called the Metahedron. As a part of a hastily gathered group of astronauts and science, you guys all jump on a ship to go explore it. And your fate ends up being tied to this alien vessel. Alone on the planet, but determined to stay alive, Kate is not a battle-hardened soldier or superpowered assassin. She's just singly one person who understands how to be an astronaut and has to use all that for. There's a little bit of a Martian edge in there when it comes to a movie comparison. She's first and foremost a scientist, something that they pointed out in the game, someone who uses their mind as a weapon, and with that weapon, Kate is determined to survive. She represents the best in humanity, their ability to overcome fear with curiosity, pain with determination, and darkness with reason. At least that's what they say in the Steam reading. But what I got when I looked at this was a game that is trying to do something slightly different. It may not be exactly as evil or deep or dark or difficult as Dark Souls or Returnal, but what they're doing is taking a game, and instead of it always being about weapons, they're using science. So it'll be like old Mr. Wizard episodes, you putting shit together to get further in the game, and if you don't, you may die, like a Dark Souls. I love this idea. I love the idea of possibly constructing things under time limits or trying to do things that are slightly different than just shoot a character's flashing weak point before you die or before it dies. There's something about this game that really speaks to me, because if you look at the tracking that we have had for Dark Souls, Returnal, those kind of games, there's a very specific way in which most of these handle each other, and they're almost all weapon based. There's something about that. But the idea of having something that might be construction based, where you have to construct something under a certain time limit, or maybe a character's destroying it while you're actually putting it together and you got to go back and repair something while they're smashing into it. There's a ton that could happen in Scars Above. Unfortunately, we don't know a bunch about it. It is coming out in 2023, but from what I've seen, I'm actually really interested in this. It's a little rough in its last trailers, but it has this atmosphere that, to me, puts that game right on this list. Speaking of the list, here's an honorable mention that isn't honorable because it went to a dishonorable company, and that's Netflix. But seriously, I like Oxenfree. Oxenfree 2 looks like it might be very cool, and that's by Netflix. That's it for me. As always, remember, guys, I've seen some people still bothered by the bots and thinking the bots are me. Ain't no thing but a chicken wing. I'm not there. That's not me. Pretend it's somebody evil. You definitely will know if it's me if I contact you in the actual comments. That's it for me. I hope you guys like these Eyes on Indies. If you do, push them out to other indies so they know that we're making these. We're putting them together for people. That's it for me. Hope you have an awesome week. Check out the Patreon. It absolutely helps fight the algorithm that YouTube has now, which is devastating. There's a reason why you're hearing so many channels start to talk about the algorithm. So I'm going to push my channel for a second. What do we do? Well, YouTube members can now join the Patreon Discord, just like Discord members. So if you don't want to join Patreon, you can go become a YouTube member at a certain level, and that'll allow you to jump into the Discord and engage with us. We do all kinds of stuff. This last weekend, we had a 10-person sit-down where we talked just about movies, how they've impacted games, how they've impacted movies, and just had this awesome discussion about fiction and how everything works together, especially for fans like me who grew up where maybe you only had B-level kind of Dungeons & Dragons style movies, and then Lord of the Rings sort of exploded it, and from that point on there was hope on the horizon. All those kind of conversations. We have a ton of different stuff, people streaming in there, people gaming in there. It's a great place. Or you can become a member of the Patreon, get some money off the amazing merch that we've got, sit in on the groups, decide what kind of videos come out, all kinds of crazy stuff on the Patreon. That's it for me. Peace out and enjoy the rest of your week.